3 scary true stories that happened during snowstorms. Snowstorms have a way of changing everything. Roads disappear, sounds are muffled, time seems to slow down, and once the snow starts falling hard enough, the world feels smaller, more isolated. For some people, snowstorms aren't just inconvenient or beautiful. They become the backdrop for moments of pure terror, experiences that still haunt them long after the snow has melted. These are 3 true horror stories that happened during snowstorms. Ordinary situations that turned into nightmares when the outside world went silent. Story 1. The man who walked out of the white eye grew up in a rural area where snowstorms were common. But one winter stands out more than any other. I was 17 at the time, and my parents had left town for the weekend, trusting me to stay home alone. A major snowstorm was forecasted, but we were used to that. I stocked up on food, filled the wood stove, and planned to spend the weekend watching movies. By late evening, the snow started coming down hard. The wind howled against the house, and visibility dropped to almost nothing. By midnight, the power went out. I lit candles and tried to sleep, but the storm was loud enough that it felt like the house was constantly under attack. Every gust made the windows rattle. Every branch snapping outside sounded like something hitting the walls. Sometime around 2 a.m., I heard a noise that didn't fit. A knock. It was faint, almost lost in the wind, but it was rhythmic, intentional. 3 slow knocks. I froze in bed, staring at my bedroom door. No one should have been out there. The nearest neighbor lived over a mile away, and the roads were completely impassable. The knocking came again, this time louder. I grabbed my phone and tried to call my parents, but there was no signal. The storm had knocked out the cell towers. I stayed perfectly still, listening. After a few seconds, the knocking stopped. I thought maybe I'd imagined it, until I heard footsteps. Not inside the house, outside, crunching slowly through the snow. They moved around the front of the house, then stopped directly beneath my bedroom window. I held my breath, afraid even the sound of breathing might give me away. Then, through the glass, I heard a voice. "Mister, please help." It sounded strained, weak, almost desperate. I slowly crawled to the window and peeked through the curtain. A man stood in the snow below. He was tall and thin, wearing no coat, just a long-sleeved shirt, completely soaked. Snow clung to his hair and beard, and his skin looked pale in the candlelight spilling from the window. His eyes were fixed on me. "I'm lost," he said. My car broke down. Something felt wrong immediately. No footprints led up to him. The snow around him was smooth, untouched, except for where he stood. I told him I'd call for help. He shook his head slowly. "No police," he said. "Just let me warm up." I backed away from the window. He smiled, not a relieved smile, not a grateful one. It was slow, deliberate. "I know you're alone," he said softly. I didn't respond. The man's expression hardened. He stepped closer to the house and raised his hand, not to knock this time, but to scrape his fingernails slowly across the siding beneath the window. The sound made my skin crawl. I locked myself in the bathroom and stayed there until morning. When the storm finally cleared and authorities reached the house, there were no footprints, no sign anyone had ever been there. But scratched into the siding beneath my bedroom window were deep grooves, as if someone had dragged their nails across it for a long time. Story 2. Trapped on the mountain road. I was driving home from a late shift during a snowstorm I should never have attempted to drive through. The weather report said moderate snowfall, but within an hour, the roads were nearly invisible. I was already halfway up a mountain pass when traffic came to a complete stop. Cars lined the road in both directions, buried in snow. Eventually, engines shut off one by one. We were stuck. No cell service. No clear idea how long it would take for plows to reach us. Hours passed. The snow kept falling. I tried to sleep, but around midnight, headlights appeared behind my car. I assumed it was a plow. It wasn't. A single SUV pulled up behind me and parked. The engine stayed running. Minutes later, someone knocked on my window. I cracked it open just enough to speak. A man stood there wearing a heavy parka, his face mostly hidden by a hood. "Can I sit in your car?" he asked. "Mine won't start." I hesitated. Something about his tone felt rehearsed. I told him I couldn't, that my car barely had enough fuel to last the night. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he nodded and walked back toward his SUV. I watched him through my side mirror. He didn't get inside. He walked past his car and disappeared into the storm. About 10 minutes later, I heard movement outside again. Footsteps. They circled my car slowly. Crunch, pause, crunch. I locked my doors. The footsteps stopped at my trunk, then my back window, then the passenger door. A hand pressed flat against the glass, leaving a smeared print in the frost. The man leaned close to the window, his face inches from mine. His eyes were wide, unblinking. "You should have let me in," he said. I screamed and hit the horn repeatedly. Other horns joined in down the line. The man stepped back, raised his hands, and walked calmly into the whiteout. When rescue crews finally reached us the next morning, they searched the area. They found the SUV buried in snow. It had no engine trouble, and no footprints leading away from it. Story 3. Snowed in with something else. I lived in a small apartment complex in a city that rarely saw heavy snow. When a massive snowstorm hit, everything shut down. I was alone, snowed in, with no reason to leave my apartment. By the second night, the building was eerily quiet. No traffic, no voices, just wind and snow. Around 1 a.m., I heard a noise in the hallway. Footsteps, slow, careful. I assumed it was another tenant checking the damage or trying to leave. Then the footsteps stopped outside my door. I held my breath. There was a scraping sound, like something being dragged lightly across the door. Then a knock, soft, polite. I didn't respond. The knock came again. Then a voice whispered, "I know you're awake." My heart raced. I hadn't made a sound. I called out, asking who it was. Silence. Then the voice spoke again, quieter this time. "The storm makes it hard to hear people scream." I grabbed a knife from the kitchen and backed away from the door. The footsteps retreated slowly down the hall. I didn't sleep at all that night. The next morning, building management sent out a notice. Someone had been going door to door during the storm, pretending to be stranded, trying to get inside apartments. One tenant had opened their door. They were found later, badly injured but alive. The attacker was never caught. Every winter since, when the snow starts falling and the world goes quiet, I think about how close someone came to stepping inside my home, all because the storm made it feel safe to hide. Snowstorms don't just isolate people physically, they isolate them emotionally, mentally. They create perfect conditions for fear, when help feels far away, and the world beyond your walls disappears. For the people who lived through these experiences, the snow never feels peaceful anymore. It feels like cover. And sometimes, the scariest thing about a snowstorm is knowing you're not as alone as you think.